All right, hey, what's up guys? GratuiTous here. In this video, I want to talk to you about 808s and give you kind of like a beginner's guide to 808s and just some common pitfalls that you may stumble upon when it comes to 808s. 808s are a very, very special instrument. Now notice how I call them an instrument, and what makes an 808 really special is it's like a kick drum and a bass line all in one. And over the years, the 808 has changed a lot in terms of what genre we are creating, all right? Now, originally, the 808 came from the Roland TR-808 Drum Machine, and I'll show you just an example of some of those sounds. But over the years, this 808 has been transformed to being such a powerful tool, okay? So again, this is from a beginner's point of view. I'll show you some common pitfalls and some best practices which I use when I use 808s. I don't usually like to kind of follow the trends in the sense of like right now trap music is big. I always like to try to teach you guys to be original producers, try and find your own sound, do your own thing. And an 808 is something that you have to master if you really want to become a good producer. So let's get into the tutorial. All right, so welcome into the studio. So before we get into this tutorial, I want to tell you guys, make sure that you are listening on headphones, earbuds, or in your studio environment so that you can actually hear the full frequency spectrum, because an 808, which I'll play right here, you may not be able to hear it and you're not going to learn much in this tutorial, right? So, okay, so that's an 808. If we just look at an 808 here quickly, so an 808 has like a kick drum and a bass line built into it. But okay, so an 808, let's first look at, I want to give a shout out to Gold Baby, okay? So if you check out Gold Baby, this guy's got a really, really cool studio of all the old vintage analog gear. And I remember I grabbed a pack from him back in the day, and this is the bank, and I'll go through a couple of the sounds just so you can kind of hear. These are the original sounds of what's called the Roland TR-808, okay? So it is a drum machine, and it was highly sought after in the industry, and a lot of these sounds are what we know. Okay, so let's just try to find a basic one. Okay, so here's like the conga. Okay, the cow sound, cymbal. All right, hi-hats. All right, so these are the sounds off of that drum machine. Snare, claps. Super long 808. Let's bring it in. I'll play with it. So. Okay, so first of all, listen to the overlap. So that's not good, okay? So that's the first thing I want to show you. So the first thing is, if you want to use an 808, you could be using a sample like this, okay? Again, it has like that initial transient, but then it has its tail. It's very important that this tail is in tune with your track, because if it isn't, your track's going to be out of pitch to your bass line, okay? But the first thing is, if you are going to use a sampled-based 808, you want to make sure you enable cut itself, and what that is going to do is whenever you play a note, it immediately cuts off the previous note, and it gives you the cleanest sounding 808, okay? So this one's pretty long. Now, if you have a sample-based 808, what you can do is you can use the out to kind of trim it a little bit, so it's not as long. That's a nice quick way to do it. You can also come up here into your envelope, your volume. You have to enable it, and you can start adjusting, you know, your decay, your sustain, and your release. If you want to more hold it down. All right. So because I have the envelope enabled, it's allowing us to play on the piano roll our own length of note. Okay. If we don't have it enabled, what's going to happen is whenever we play the note, oops. So it's just going to play like that full note no matter what you do, right? But if you want more flexibility, you can enable the envelope, and watch, it'll be more shorter. Okay, so that's the first thing to know. The next thing I'll show you here quickly before we get into this track, because I want to show you again just how powerful an 808 is the slide. Okay, so when we talk about an 808, very often we hear about slides. So here is the slide note up there. You literally just enable it, and when you click a note in, you can see it has the triangle. So if we play this by itself, you're not going to hear the note because it's a slide note. So you have to actually have a real note to be playing, and then it can slide into it. And I'll let you hear that. Okay, so the first thing is, let's just disable the envelope because my sustain and stuff isn't very long. So we're going to get rid of the envelope. But if you want more flexibility, again, you could use the envelope to fine tune the length and stuff, or sometimes you could just do the out. So we have our 808 and it's going to slide. Okay, but that's very subtle. So what I will do is I'll bring it up quite a bit and you can really hear it go like wing. All right. And so when we are programming our 808, we can do very cool stuff to get this slide kind of sound. And it's really cool on your sub, right? You can really get some cool sounds on your sub with using this 808. All right. So that is pretty much the basics of what's called a sample-based 808. There's pros and cons to it. The pro is, you know, it's just lightweight. You can bring it in, you can do your thing with it. But I'll show you also near the end of this video, I will load up another beat. And you'll see here in Flex, they have the 808 bass. And these are all synthesized 808s. And the benefit of a synthesized 808 is because it's essentially like math, right? If you go up and down on the keyboard, your 808 is just going to be high quality no matter what you are hitting. All right. But whereas if you play a sample, what happens is it stretches. So as it goes up higher, it's actually shorter. So watch, it's very short. But if we go down lower, it gets longer. And just the overall quality of the sound isn't as good because as it goes up and down, you're not getting like that original, what it was recorded at. When you hop into something like a virtual instrument, you are getting the absolute highest quality, okay? Now, one thing I want to say in Flex is I do find a lot of them are quite heavily distorted and over-processed, like in a sense, like they're more geared maybe towards trap. For me, I always like a really clean 808, and I'll show you an example of that, something like this, or sorry, this one. Okay, so something like this is pretty good. It has some distortion. That's one thing to say. You want your 808 to have distortion, because if it doesn't, it's going to be hard to cut through small speakers, which is why I said listen on headphones, listen in your studio environment where you can actually hear the bass. But if you're listening on like a cell phone, the speaker isn't big enough to be able to hear the bass. So that's why you want it distorted, because it'll cut through the mix. So these are the type of 808s that I really like. And the reason is because, watch this. Here's this 808. You can push it however hard you want. Okay, and then again, you can switch up like whatever you want. We'll go a little bit more aggressive. So without it, we're hearing more of that kick drum hit, right? If we push it a little harder, we're losing that kick drum, but we're getting more distortion. Now, one thing I want to say quickly about Flex, because I'll talk about this in our next step, is the release, okay? So sometimes if you're using something like this, and if you push it down and let go, it releases too quick. I always like to have a little bit of release, and I'll show you that. Okay, so this is too much. Okay. sorry, that's loud. But if you have just a little bit, it gives your note just a little bit more life to it. It's not just so static. See? So again, that's an 808. And I just want to give you an example here. So I'll turn off the voices just for now. I want you to hear the beat. And this was I used an 808. This is a sample 808. And as you can see, I pulled back the out. I'm just going to clone this 808, and it's still going to play on that same mixer insert. And we'll just pull back the out, because again, this is how the 808 sounded. I found that the tail was just a little too aggressive for the track. But again, like I said, when you are using a sample-based 808, and if you are going up and down in pitch, it's not that same quality as if you are using something like a virtual instrument, which is synthesized, okay? So here is the track, pretty catchy. So this is the 808, right? So let's look at the 808. It goes like this. Okay, and so watch, if I copy this and we reset it, you're going to see that the 808 is just, it's quite like the bass, the tail is so long, right? So let's bring in like I have a clap and some hi-hats. right? So it hits hard, but for this track, I dialed it back and it sounds more cleaner. All right, so this is an 808 that I'm using for my kick drum. You can use a kick drum in addition to the 808. It's going to make your mixing maybe a little bit harder. You have to be a little bit wiser in your sound selection when you are, selecting a kick drum to play with this 808. But a little funny story. So I always say to my mom, you go girl, right? Like always, like for just encouragement and stuff. And I actually made this beat with my mom. She was sitting here and I made it with my mom. I was explaining to her what an 808 is. It was funny because like we were listening to this and my mom was like, oh, I don't really like that too much, right? And then I added in this guitar melody and it sounded so funny. And then I ended up calling it You Go Girl. And then I threw in some vocals here, which I'll let you listen to. And then I want to hop to the other track because I used flex for the 808. And I just want to show you you can still get a good sound either way. But again, if you're using a sample based 808, and again, I always tell you guys about the exclusive audio drum bundle trio, right? If you take my FL Studio courses in the Urban Heat drum kit and kicks, there's tons of 808s and there's tons of different styles, right? So let's just bring one of these in. And again, you want to right click, you want to go cut itself so it's nice and clean. So that is just like an 808. This is a sampled based 808. To control it, again, you have your out, you can come up here to your envelope, you can fine tune how your sound is triggered, right? And when you release the note. Okay, so here is this track with some of the vocals. And one quick thing I'll share with you, again, I talked to you about audio painting. So if this is the 808, all right, you can see that pattern 3 is also the 808. Okay, so watch, if I click 808 right here, you can see it's on the nut rattler, right? And then you come here to pattern 3 and it's still using the 808. So this is like the 808 number 2 kind of thing. And so what I did was, because I talked to you about audio painting, you always need to have some type of transition, prepare the listener before the chorus. And so all I did was, you can see that I added more hits, right? So comparing to 808 to 808 number 2, you can just see that it goes boom, 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 right? So right here. So that's this track. I was just playing around with it. I really think the guitar in the 808 is pretty catchy. Now I want to show you here My Soul Feels It, because this track is created with Flex. All the instruments, I think I played this for you in the previous tutorial about what is a rompler. And you can see that, again, right here is the 808, right? So we have Flex, and if I just play it for you, like this thing hits hard, right? And again, when it's in a virtual instrument that's been synthesized, right, it's all just math. So you're getting the highest quality in terms of if you go up or if you go down. So that's really low. But there you go, okay? So let's just I'm just gonna right click, go clone, and I'll just put this to no mixer insert. And I wanna go through a couple of the 808s just to show you. Out of all of them, there's only maybe a handful that are really, really awesome, which I feel like I could use over and over. Like, it's pretty aggressive. Not bad. Again, maybe some fine tuning in there, right? Not bad. But again, some of my favorite ones was like the synth boosted. Like that thing hits hard. Okay, so again, it's all about knowing how, what is a good, awesome sound for beat making, because like I said, here's the synth clean. You can drive this and you can distort it. Right now, even if we want to send it to our own mixer insert, so let's just go new 808, okay, and we'll put it over here, and we will route that there. And let's just load up the Fruity Blood Overdrive, And a cool thing I want to share with you, I recently found this out, is you can the Fruity Blood Overdrive, if you right click it, has different themes, and I never knew this. Okay, check that out, right? All right, so anyways, we have this 808. It's pretty hard, right? I'll turn it down just a little bit. And watch, as soon as you add some distortion, you can totally change the character of this 808. And so what I was trying to say is over the years, the 808 has come such a far way in, it's one of the most versatile instruments. Turn down a little bit. Okay, so without it, we'll just do it up here. Totally different sound. And so what I was trying to say is if you're mixing your track and like if you're listening in your studio environment and it's like, you know, the 808's hitting hard, it sounds good, you take it to that cell phone and it doesn't have that same energy, and that's just because your 808 may not be distorted, right? You need to often have distortion on that 808 for it to cut through the mix, and it's kind of a balance between it sounding good versus enough distortion, okay? So again, this track was created with Flex, okay? We have this muted guitar, we have this other sound, all right? And then we have this 808, and this is the exact 808 that I selected. This is how I processed it. All I did was I added some release onto it. All right. And so with the release, that just means that if I hold down the note and let go, it has a little bit of tail. Okay, and you're going to hear when it comes to the track that the 808 comes in. Now, you'll also notice I have two 808s, but it's still using the same 808 virtual instrument. So it's the same instance. I just created two different variations of the pattern just to have the beat be more original. You know, because if it was just like this over and over, it's very repetitive. It's boring for the listener. Okay, so I just spiced it up, and like I was saying in my previous tutorial about what is a rompler, it's very rare for me to have a track with like, you know, 2 or 3 instruments. And again, I am considering the 808 an instrument. So usually my tracks, you know, I have like 7 or 8 instruments just because I always like that. When I go to arrange the track, you can mix and match, add your piano, remove your piano, and it's just, you get different combinations. It makes the arrangement easier when there's more instruments. And so here we go. Let's listen to the track, okay? So this is only with Flex, and this is with an 808 inside of a virtual instrument, which gives you the highest quality, okay? We got our audio painting right here. Okay, so this is the 808. And then the 808 also kind of has like that click sound, which I'll show you. So watch, if we boost this up, you can typically hear that click. Okay. So this is what really helps that 808 cut through. I have one other track I'll load up for you quickly if yeah, it's called No Need to Flex. So I only used Flex on it, and that's why I called it Flex. This will be the last one I show you, and I may want to continue off of this beat in a sense of I'm going to teach you about how to arrange tracks nice and quick, where you can kind of do it like this and you start removing your stuff, and we'll talk about that in another tutorial. But I want to show you this 808 because what I did was I did some slides. This one is the 808 flattened. So this one's quite distorted. It doesn't have much of an initial transient like that kick drum, but it did turn out pretty cool in the track. And so let's listen to the 808 by itself. And again, I have some slides going on, which you will hear. Okay, so for example, like here would be a slide. I didn't do an actual slide note. I must have done, let's take a peek. Yeah, I did the mono technique. All right, so here it goes. Oops. So listen to the slides. Another slide. Another slide. 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 Okay, so let's listen to it in the beat, and you might hear it a little bit better. right, so we have our 808. All right, so we have our slide right there. There's the slide. Right, and I just made this beat just kind of as a quick example. I wanted this beat to be the one to show you about the 808. Again, we're gonna get a slide right here. All right, so if you guys got any questions about learning beat making, learning FL Studio, definitely check out my website. It's GratuiTous.com. I have tons and tons of FL Studio courses and books. I offer lessons. There's also a free podcast, which you guys can tune into. Just visit itsgratuitous.com. And I also have a free book if you guys would like to start slow. It's called 5 Keys to a Successful Beat. To download it, you can go to itsgratuitous.com/5 keys. Thanks for checking out the video. Leave a comment if you'd like to see a video on a different topic. And I hope you liked this beat called You Go Girl.